Today, we're going to have a very interesting topic that I believe needs to be discussed.
With the two attorneys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the topic today we'll be discussing Diddy's federal indictment.
Sean Puffy Combs, P. Diddy.
Yes. Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy.
A.k.a. I need a lawyer.
That is also true. We're going to go over this federal indictment. Now, of course, we've both been practicing a long time, and we've seen a lot of cases in federal and state court, but federal court is a different animal. Federal court is completely different from when you step into state court. 26 in California and other type of venues in Chicago are great courthouses, a lot of super serious cases. But when you walk into that federal building, it's a completely different feeling.
Well, state court is more high volume, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they will have a higher volume. They'll have more cases because they're going to take pretty much whatever comes to them. The federal authority is going to be much more selective about the cases they take.
Is that why they got the high conviction rate? Because they only take the cases they think they can win?
Absolutely.
And state court takes everybody?
Everybody that comes in, you come out with something. So that's kind of way it works.
I got a question.
Yes.
What do we have in common with P. Diddy?
Howard University.
Exactly.
Howard University.
We both attended Howard University School of Law, and he went to Howard undergrad.
Yeah. I think with all of this now, I'm not sure if they're going to acknowledge or keep his credentials or any honorary degrees or anything he's gotten there. But again, these are just allegations.
Exactly.
These are just allegations. So we're going to talk about the charges. We're going to talk about, the veracity we believe in the charges. If we believe that this is a good case, a great case for the prosecutors to be bringing, and quite frankly, why bring this type of case? Sean Combs is a rapper, producer, a music mogul. Why are the federal authorities going after this particular person?
Well, both of us, we both had the benefit of being on both sides, both of us being state prosecutors and defense attorneys. But my first knee-jerk reaction is, this is a RICO case, Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act type of case. And those case, the intent of that law was to go after the United States mafia, drug cartels, the big gangs, and just a cursory look at it, this is not a RICO case.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the actual charges themselves, let's talk a little bit about Diddy and his career. So Diddy, or Sean Combs, I'm going to call him Mr. Combs during this interaction here because I just feel unusual calling a grown man Diddy. He's a prominent music mogul known for his influential role in hip-hop and rap culture. He began his career as an intern at Uptown Records and founded Bad Boy Entertainment in 1993, producing major hits like Juicy by Notorious B.I.G. and his solo debut album No Way Out in 1997 actually won him a Grammy. And that really established his star power, his power as a musician. That's where that really got going. Beyond music, he's gotten his self into a lot of business ventures, making himself, by all accounts, a billionaire.
Diversifying.
Yeah. He's expanded his business with his clothing line, Sean John, and the successful Ciroc vodka brand.
I've tasted that. It's not bad.
Oh, well, that's why he's making money from it. His public persona is characterized by his lavish lifestyle and a strong media presence. Throughout his career, he's faced other legal challenges and public feuds, adding to his controversial image. But despite this, Mr. Combs' cultural impact and numerous awards solidify his legacy as a key figure in the entertainment industry. So he's had some ups and downs during his career. He's had some work that he's done during his career in regards to music and business. But one thing is for sure, people know who he is. So that's some information there about Mr. Combs. He's been in the limelight for a long time, since mid '90s. He's really been on the scene and really been doing work in the music industry and really just out here making a name for himself.
A lot of other entertainers.
Yeah. So I mean, he's produced a lot. He started, or he's getting credit for starting a lot of people's careers, and he's just been a constant since he really came on the scene. Really with Notorious B.I.G. since the early '90s there, and he hasn't. It's not as though he's gone anywhere. He's just always made himself relevant one way or another.
He was in the movies. Remember Monster Ball with
Halle Berry.
Halle Berry, yes.
Yes, he did. He did make an appearance in that movie. So he's really diversified his career. So, but all of this, with the positive of his career, there also been some negatives where he's faced legal trouble, and then he's also always been thrown in the mix with the whole Tupac and Biggie rivalry. That Bad Boy, East West Coast, right? Bad Boy was at the center of and really involved in that rivalry that was going on. And some people have even inferred or implicated that he was involved maybe in Tupac's death.
Correct.
So, when you do well in life and when you're out there, there's going to be some infamy that's going to come along with that.
It's the cost of doing business, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But with all of that, though, you can be infamous. You can have a public persona. We know that a lot of entertainers, in particular rappers, the things they're rapping about aren't true. They aren't things that they've done.
They don't live that life.
No, they're selling records. So with that in mind, though, now we're looking at an actual federal indictment, where, as we sit here today, Mr. Combs is still in jail.
Yeah. An indictment, what is that? Just what they're accusing him of. It's not evidence. It's not proof of anything.
Right. What we're looking at here, we have his indictment, and it is I'm trying to see how many counts here. We have 3 counts. We have a 3-count indictment. So let's explain, first of all, because, we use terms like indictment, counts, all those types of things. And, we've been dealing with this stuff for years. But, Rickey, can you explain what indictment is?
Well, indictment is just a formal way of informing the accused what they're accusing him of. It's a document. It's based upon, and it's a really general document to kind of give you a notice of what they're accusing you of.
Yeah.
And again, as we've done before in a lot of trials, it's not evidence. It just kind of puts you on notice of why you're being charged.
Right. In state court, there are 2 ways an indictment can really come forward. One way, we can have a preliminary hearing where officers will come to court or witnesses will come to court and they testify about what happened. Then the defense attorney, we get an opportunity to cross-examine that person. And then the judge can say, okay, I have enough here to believe that a crime occurred and they arrested the right person, or I don't have enough and I'm going to throw the case out at this point.
But that document's called an information.
That's information, yes. But in federal court, they don't do prelims or preliminary hearings. They're only going to go in front of the grand jury. Can you explain what the grand jury is?
Well, it's most people are aware how you go for jury duty. It's almost the same process. They get people, registered voters. They come. They meet with the prosecutor. At that time, the prosecutor provides witnesses and some evidence to say, this is what we have. Is there enough to hold this person over for trial? And the members of this grand jury will vote yay or nay.
Right. So in this case, those grand jurors were sitting in a room. A federal prosecutor came in there with probably an agent, FBI agent or something to that effect, sat the FBI agent down and asked the FBI agent a lot of questions in front of those grand jurors. And those grand jurors, after the questioning is over, they can ask questions too of the FBI agent. and the federal prosecutor would then get those questions answered.
Yeah, the FBI agent in federal court is like what a detective would be in state court.
Right, exactly. So then those questions get answered, and then the grand jury, now they have a decision to make. After they hear what happened, in essence, the prosecutor will go through, and usually it's not going to be super detailed because they don't want to get too particular early on, just in case they have to wiggle and go in another direction. But then the grand jury has a decision to make. They say, hey, are we going to indict this person or not? Are we going to move forward with the charges or not? Now, the unusual thing about the grand jury, more often than not, they may not know the person's name of, who they're indicting. They're just going to get the information, and then they say whether they're going to indict the person or not. That way, try to keep it, as neutral as possible to that certain extent. Because I think in some instances, if they knew probably who was the target or who was the person they were trying to indict, I think that could sway some people in what they would do or not do. But we heard the expression before with you can indict a ham sandwich, right?
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, as prosecutors, I mean, how many times did you take a case in front of a grand jury as a prosecutor?
I was never in the grand jury unit, but I've been in it as a witness. Yeah. And I mean, our knowledge is that basically they walk in and they said, I want an indictment, unless it's something that's just totally ridiculous. 99% of the time, the grand jury is going to return an indictment.
Yeah, I worked in the grand jury, and so I took hundreds of cases to the grand jury and presented for felonies, and I did it hundreds of times. You know how many were rejected, or how many where they said no true bill, or the grand jury said no? One.
Not again.
One.
I was
just one, just that,
exactly.
Just that one. But even after that happens, you could still
reindict.
You can go back, which that's what ended up happening. But you can just go back and say, okay, this other grand jury said no, but I'm gonna tell this to you again. I'm gonna tell you this information. Do you want to give an indictment? So,
what wouldn't it be true that as prosecutors, they don't really emphasize to the grand jury that you can say no?
No,
they don't emphasize it.
That information is not shared. That's not shared to grand jurors, and they just anything, because they're just regular people. They're sitting there, and they're going to say, oh, this prosecutor and police officer are telling me that a crime occurred. Something must have happened. Okay.
See, that's why you don't have lawyers in the grand jury. Have you ever got a grand jury subpoena?
No, no. It's and the strange thing about the grand jury is it's a secret proceeding. So defense attorneys, we aren't allowed to show up there. We can't go. So it's just the prosecutor and whoever their officer is and the grand jurors. We don't get to show up for that. We have to kind of wait outside the door, and get away see what happens.
Oh, and plus the attorneys don't get to go and ask questions or anything like that, or make a presentation.
No, it's, and this is why, we were prosecutors, of course, and here in Chicago, one of the largest cities in the world, one of the busiest areas of cities in the world. But prosecutors have so much power, so much discretion, so much, they lord so much power over people's freedom.
Exactly.
By the strike, a little pin drop or signing a document or doing some information, you can take away someone's liberty just because that's what you have decided that you wanted to do. So it's a very important job that I think that sometimes we forget how serious it is.
Yeah, and the prosecutors in the grand jury, they have less and less discretion.
Right.
Because when I was a prosecutor, if a case looked weak, we'd say, no, this is not I think this is a case that we should charge someone. But as time has gone on, the discretion is now in the hands of a very small number of people.
Right. Yeah. You see that often where the supervisors or the managerial people are the ones making all the decisions. And it's almost as though lower level prosecutors, why are they there if they can't make the decisions they want to make?
And the supervisory prosecutors, they're not out in the field talking to the witnesses, to the victims, to the police officers, looking at videos. They come back and say, this is what I have.
Right.
Before we have more discretion. But
right. So back to Mr. Combs here, though. So we're clear on what an indictment is and what the grand jury is. But what do you think, how does Sean Combs go from, dancing on a video to now being federally indicted? What do you think led up to this indictment?
Well, somebody, for lack of a better word, switched. Somebody was not happy. Someone says, you know what, I need to talk to someone. And they're angry for some reason. People have different motives. I think it was one or two, whatever the number was, and they weren't happy with him. So right. I don't know what their motive is. I can't say whether it's money. I don't know whether it's revenge or, but I think that was the case.
Yeah.
It's not like he walked in a bank and robbed somebody.
No. Initially, I think a lot of speculation was that the civil lawsuits came to the attention of the federal authorities. And from that, they said, well, we need to look at them criminally. I don't agree with that. I believe the federal authorities are way too busy. They're dealing with very serious individuals, very serious cases.
International terrorists.
Yes.
But if you remember, when the civil lawsuits came out, he resolved them very quickly.
He did, which leads me to believe if you resolve, I do civil cases well, I do civil rights, personal injury, civil litigation. If a case is resolved that fast, then it means they know they're wrong.
Or they don't want it to get out. A person like Mr. Combs, he doesn't want that to get out in the public very quickly.
I would think that they resolve it quickly like that. You're right in that he doesn't want things to get out, but also on the other hand, if you know it's not true, whether things come out or not, you're gonna fight that case. You have the resources, correct. You have the money. You would fight that tooth and nail in order to keep your reputation. Well, what it is.
We have people accused of murder, and they say they didn't do it. They're not gonna say, well, I'm gonna plead out. That says I didn't do it, and they roll the dice because they said I didn't do it.
Right.
So if you're not guilty of what they accuse, why not fight it?
Yeah. So I mean, as a criminal defense attorney too, and I'm gonna say this too. I always say it to every episode. We're speaking from the vantage point of criminal defense attorneys. We're not Mr. Combs' attorneys. We're not privy to the discovery. I don't know all the ins
and discovery is what?
Was that? Oh, yeah, there you go. That's a good point. I always forget. We're not discovery. Is all of the information that the prosecutors are planning to use to prosecute Mr. Combs. Any witness statements, any DNA, any videos, police reports, any information that they have, that they were presented at trial, they have to, by law, they have to turn it over to the defense. And if you're representing someone, you're going to look at all that, and that's how you help craft your defense in the case.
So in short, discovery is all the evidence the prosecution has.
Exactly. So we haven't seen that. We're not going to get a chance to see that unless Mr. Combs calls us up and says, hey, I need a little help. But
if we got love on the phone.
Yeah, there you go. But I'm saying all that to say, all our opinions we give here are going to be based on what we've seen here in Indictment, just our experience, and also from the viewpoint of defense attorneys. So I'm saying to say, anybody, we're not degrading any victim or anyone for that matter who says that they've been victimized by Mr. Combs or anybody for that matter. But we're speaking at it from a point that everybody's cloaked with the presumption of innocence.
Including the victims if they were accused.
Exactly.
Oh, but just getting back real quickly to when we talk about the indictment kind of gives us a little hint of what some of the evidence may be.
It does, right. So, the civil lawsuits came up and those were resolved quickly. And then some more people came out of woodwork and wanted to sue for similar allegations and saying that there were other sexual type framed allegations that were happening, and they wanted to sue for that. I think that someone was in Mr. Combs's
inner circle.
I think maybe they got arrested for something else. I think they got trouble for something else, and they say, you know what? I got something for you.
I got something bigger than me.
Yeah, bigger than me. If I give you this information, will you cut me a deal?
That happens every day, all day, in criminal cases, federal and state. Absolutely. You get the low level guy, and he picks up a case, and he doesn't want to do 10 years. He doesn't want to do 20 years, yeah. And it's a trade.
Right. So I remember when everything first started coming out about these allegations against Mr. Combs. Immediately, everyone is saying, "Oh, he's guilty. He's screwed. He's done." With just looking at the indictment as we're looking at it, I've saw many pundits, legal pundits out there saying that he was done. It was over. We're gonna go through this more in particular, but my initial reaction is, from what I've seen or what I had saw, is they didn't have much.
Well, the first thing people saw, and they were saying he was done, was the videotape where he appears to be assaulting a girlfriend.
Yes.
And people were saying he's done.
Right.
But that's a big difference from being charged over a RICO statute.
Right.
He may be a bad guy if this video is true, and he has no defense. He may have been they accuse of him doing what they call a freak off, doing some freaky stuff. He may be a freaky guy.
Right.
But I think the issue of all that raising to the level of a corrupt organization, like he's some kingpin,
yeah,
they got to show me.
Right, absolutely. It's something they're going to really have to prove, and I think it's going to be tough for them. Now, because when we look at this, we look at the indictment. Now, this is only a 14-page document. A 14-page document. In my experience in federal court, the federal authorities tend to be very detail-oriented. They're not going to hide the card. They're not going to hide their cards from me. They're going to put all their cards on the table. They're going to tell you, this is what we have. This is every bit of it. They're going to show you everything down to, your underwear size. They're going to tell you everything and say, look, we got everything.
And the number of bottles of lotion.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to tell you everything and say, we got you. Just give up. And that's why more often than not, people don't go to trial in federal court. They plead guilty because they have the goods. They have unlimited amount of resources.
They have 4 aces.
Right.
The king, queen, jack, and 10 of spades.
Yep, they got them all. They got them all. And, you're walking in there, you're facing the full force of the United States government.
With a lot of money.
A lot of money. A lot of motivation. But with all that being said, I look at this 14-page document. I say, this is a skimpy federal indictment.
I wasn't impressed.
No, to me, in state court, what happens more often than not is police, Chicago police or whatever police department, they're reactive. Meaning a crime happens, someone calls them, they show up there, after it happens usually, and then they try to figure out, well, what happened. So then in their tunnel vision, more often than not, in their investigation, they figure out, they say, well, that guy did it. They frame the evidence around and say that guy. They arrest that guy before they finish investigating. After the person is arrested, then they go get information, and they're steadily getting information and handing it over. But I find the opposite for the feds. They'll investigate you forever. They'll investigate you. And then once they investigate you for years, then they arrest you and they say,
Oh,
here's
just before the statute of limitations.
right, just for the statute of limitations. Can't let that back. And what's statute of limitations? What is that?
Well, statute of limitations by law, based upon the type of crime it is, that you have so much time. For example, in state court, say if it's a robbery case, on felonies, you have 3 years from the date of the crime to charge them. If the crime happened in 2000, you have to file that before that 3 years is up. If you file it in 2004, then you're barred or you're prohibited from filing charges.
Right, exactly.
The only other case offhand that there is no statute of limitations is murder.
Yeah.
There might be some other minor ones, but murder is the number one.
Yeah, sex-related charges too.
That's changed. Before
Yeah.
there was a statute of limitations.
Right, it was. Yeah, the feds, they say, we have everything here. Here's all of it. Everything we've been investigating you. Everything you've been doing from what cereal you eat, to where you go in the evening. Everything. We got it. Here you go. And now you're charged what you want to do. But with this indictment here, it's so scant and so vague. I feel like they're still working. I feel like they're here. They wanted to rush. They rushed it, and they wanted to get them arrested for some reason, but they didn't have the goods yet.
And and another thing, they take the words, like you said, racketeering, conspiracy. That's count one, and they will force the words like conspiracy into the accusations. He conspired. He conspired. He conspired. All of a sudden, like, oh, that's proof. Mm-hmm. They're not really, conspiracy. What is conspiracy? It's agreement between two or more people.
Right. So let's look at these counts. Before we even get into them, the interesting thing, RICO or racketeering sort of charges, they were actually written into law in 1970 by Nixon, if you believe it. Nixon wanted to, and there was a plan to really take down the mob. And when we say the mafia, we're talking about stereotypical
the Italian
mobs, yeah.
New York, Chicago.
Right. And so this was a tool where they said, hey, we keep getting these low-level guys, but we cannot get the actual people in charge because they're too smart. They don't commit the murders. They're not committing
and you can't even say the main guy's name.
Right.
If you're a low-level guy, an associate, you cannot say his name.
Right. So RICO comes into effect, and RICO basically says, look, if you were involved in any way, I can charge everyone with all these crimes if I can prove if you were involved in some way or another.
It's kind of like a glorified accountability. Before, if we rob a bank, if I drive you there, and then other person acts as the lookout, and then a third and fourth person go in, one has a gun and the other one's taking the money, then that's kind of like a conspiracy. Right. But we kind of call it accountability. But in a conspiracy, you're accountable for what everybody does,
right,
from the top to the bottom. If you just say, go kill that guy, and you never live at your home, but someone else goes and gets a gun from someone else, and that person goes and kills someone, if you drove him there, you gave him the gun, doesn't matter. Everybody's involved in the conspiracy.
Right. So we have count one here, which is racketeering conspiracy. They say for decades, Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, and the rest of the names, the defendant abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. So they come out swinging, they come out strong there, saying this is what this count one is going to talk about. Count one.
That sounds real bad, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, but there's no meat in this indictment as to what they mean.
No, you're right. You go through and you get all the way even down to Page 3, they're talking about the Combs enterprise. They describe his business. They go to page 4 and 5. They're still describing more so the business and then how some of these things happen that they're alleging. And that really goes on for several pages. But, when we look at this closely for count 1, does anything stand out to you, Rickey?
A lot of it's just redundant to me. The Combs enterprise, he was a businessman, diversified businesses, and they feel if they can just replace it with business with Combs or criminal enterprise, that makes it what it is.
Yeah. So, the expression that really came into the general's view or everyone in the public started using the expression is these freak offs.
Oh, just real quick, here's an example how they kind of they're trying to put this square thing into the round hole, square peg into the round hole. They said the Combs enterprise included his leadership. Leadership, that sounds leader of a gang or the mafia. Really, he's the president of his business. Right. Its members and associates. The mob is made up of associates, right?
Right.
And made person, and then the leadership. And they say enterprise, So they literally try to use the same terms as the mob.
Right. So, and I think it's, like we were saying, it's a stretch. You're really trying to make this this label, this music label, this business company, this actual business, to compare them to some type of crime syndicate.
And what happens in the mob? I just said they say members and associates.
Right.
In the mob, they all have nicknames. The Chin, Tony Two Nose.
Right.
And they emphasize giving him these nicknames over and over again, like in the mob, Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy. And people might think, well, maybe it is a criminal organization. He has all these little nicknames, like, Tony the Killer.
Right. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substance. During and separate from the freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kick, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by the hair. The assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in the freak-offs. So,
I'm just saying, like you said, we don't want to minimize any victims in here. They don't allege, at least an indictment. I think they'll bring out something different now, that this involved minors. And my knee-jerk reaction is, if you have adults who willingly come, whether we like it or we find it abnormal or whatever, that, if you're an adult, you can always just walk away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I'm a grown man and I don't like what he's doing, if I don't like my job, I don't like to pay, I may just walk away, even though I may have to struggle. So, I don't know.
Right. Because this sort of gets into, the possible defenses. When I'm looking at this, and I agree with you in that, again, we're not minimizing victims or seriousness of what these allegations are. But from my perspective as a criminal defense attorney, I'm looking at it and I'm saying this may be difficult to prove. With strong cross-examination from whatever witnesses they present, there are going to be things that come out, I think, that a jury, if positioned the correct way, juror might sit back and say, what? Oh, this person, you flew out there willingly?
First class.
First class? You showed up there willingly.
He fed you.
There are these things. If there was promises of career things, these things did happen, and these are things that criminal defense attorneys, we have to ask a cross-examination and get out, because we're looking at an important word that we talk about a lot in the criminal world is veracity. If somebody's telling the truth or not, how truthful they are.
Believability and motive, and motive to lie.
And bias, right? Yeah. Everybody, many times that in criminal cases, when someone gets on the stand, and probably, because we've been doing this for so long, a lot of times people have a reason they're up there. Unfortunately, a lot of times the true and honest and just a straight up victim, they're not going to be on a witness stand, because more often than not, cases like that, maybe they plea out or something to that effect. So if case is going to trial, there are issues with it usually, and those people that are on the witness stand there, a lot of times there is some other motive as to why they're there, as opposed to just seeking some type of justice or something, or in a way they've been wrong that was criminal. There's usually something else going on there, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pull out what those reasons are.
Also, like you said, our job is to look for weaknesses in their cases and raise any defenses that he may have. But one thing I thought about is, just off the top of my head, this guy's, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's close. Why? Why would we have to force somebody? Women come to him, and probably men too, voluntarily. That he wouldn't have to why threaten them? Because for every one person that comes to be a rapper, there's 1,000 others trying to take their place.
Yeah. The fact of the matter with these types of cases too is you get a lot of public angst. The general public, they see these allegations, they hear about it, sounds horrible, and so there's this downpour of negative thoughts about.
Everybody's jumping on the guilty wagon. They're piling on.
Yeah, and so a lot of times as defense attorneys, we aren't popular people, because everyone is pointing and saying, "Oh, your client's guilty. How can you defend that person?"
No, my response is,
"What's that?
I wasn't there."
Yeah.
I wasn't there, and you weren't there.
Right.
So my job is to put the state's or the government's case to a test.
Yeah. They have to prove it beyond a reasonable.
Only people who were there really know what happened.
Right.
That's not my job.
Yeah. It's not. And I just firmly and strongly believe everyone deserves a zealous defense, no matter what that is, no matter what kind of case it is, because God forbid it's ever, you that gets accused of a crime. And it's easier to get accused of a crime than you think.
It's real simple.
Some people are high and mighty. That would never be me. I would never get accused of anything in my life.
Sometimes it's bad luck or timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you would hope if it ever happened to you that people would give you the benefit of the doubt that our Constitution allows. You're innocent until proven guilty. That brings up an interesting point. We're going to get back in this, but an interesting point we talk about a lot, where I think, honestly, for the most part, in today's society, you're guilty till you can prove yourself innocent.
In all my cases, I always tell my clients this: we have to prove you innocent.
Yeah. I
know the presumption you're cloaked with the presumption of innocence. You're presumed innocent when they come out with this indictment, just prior to trial, during trial, even during the jury deliberations, when they're trying to make decisions, you presume innocent. But I tell my client, we have to fight for it. Yeah. I think that's the appropriate posture to have, is that you have to prove yourself innocent.
Absolutely.
That means you got to fight.
Absolutely. I think the unfortunate reality is, whenever someone's arrested, as soon as they walk into the courtroom, I think many judges, and particularly the prosecutors, shoot, the court clerk, I don't know. I think you walk in there, everybody's look like, he's guilty.
Imagine if he just blurts out, "I'm innocent." They're gonna look at him like, "Dude, please."
Right. Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
What are you talking about? It's ridiculous.
You're in jail. Why are you here? I didn't do anything. They start laughing at you.
Exactly. So, I mean, but with that in mind, that's why
Police wouldn't lie.
Oh, yeah. I think that's why very often our job is a difficult one because we already starting behind the eight ball. We're already starting behind the eight ball, so we're coming in, and not many people root for us.
That's correct.
Not many people root.
Sometimes
for us.
our clients.
No.
Not just.
Yeah, not many people root for us, but we go in there, and to do what we do, you got to be a strong individual because people are constantly attacking you. But we have a job to do, and it's an important job, so we do it.
Yeah, you got to be tough and professional at the same time, because if you're not professional, it only hurts your client.
Yeah.
You have to be professional with the prosecutors, even though, we may not agree with their strategy. We may not agree with the judge. We may think the judge may be biased, leaning in one direction, but we have to be, because it's not about us, it's about the client, right. Period.
So count 2 was is sex trafficking, and then count 3 is transportation to engage in prostitution. The most developed charge or count is count 1, the one with the racketeering conspiracy. Now, I find that in federal cases, the indictment is usually a roadmap. The indictment is going to really lay out, and usually in excruciating detail. If you look at an indictment, like the indictment against, say, for instance, Trump or something to that effect, they can be hundreds of pages long, the indictment. And I find them usually to be 20, 30, 40, 50 pages regularly that long and that detailed, because they want you to know exactly what you're charged with and have no question about it. Is
that like an intimidation type thing? Like, look, I'm gonna show you this ace of spades I got.
Right. Yeah.
So you're like, oh.
Hold on.
Exactly.
As opposed in state court, in our indictments, they're usually very generic.
Pointed a gun, shot him, causing death.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's
it. he got shot.
Yeah,
he died.
Right. They're not detailed. They don't include a lot of information. It's just short little paragraphs, and they just basically just resuscitate the law to you, spit the law, and say, here you go. Because
it's fill in the blank.
Yeah.
You just put the victim's name in one blank.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, and that's where we taught to do them. When I was typing up charges many years ago, we actually I had to type them myself. We were typing up charges, the indictments, or whatever. Yeah, we typed them up. We typed up the indictments. Yeah, we were taught, you just generic. You're not really getting into detail. But the federal ones, the complete opposite. So that's another reason it has me thinking they don't have a lot of information on this Mr. Combs case.
But I think it's going to be interesting. You say, sex trafficking. I think that's harder when it's not children and people who have been around him for a long period of time, in years. I think it's more difficult to talk about sex trafficking versus someone say, "I'll pay you this money if you come over here and do this."
Yeah. Let's look at this from the perspective, let's put on our old prosecutor hats, pull out old prosecutor.
Let me go get my blue suit.
Yeah, go put that on. Shirt's too colorful. So, on a case like this, with it being such a high profile sort of individual, high profile case where there's eyes on it, if you were to prosecute in this case, what do you think it'll be like to prosecute a case like this?
Well, I'm gonna try my best. Mm-hmm. Just looking at this, I think it's an attempt. If we dirty him up enough, people just won't like him.
Yeah.
Let's give him the mafia names. Yeah. Let's call this enterprise, not a business. Mm-hmm. Associates. They work for me.
Right.
So I think if I think if they want to dirty him up, painting him to be something that fits into this mafia thing, they're going to squeeze hard to try to put that square peg into the round hole. In state court they would do that sometimes, and they got in a lot of trouble. Prosecutors will call a defendant a dog or something like that. Nah, you get cases reversed like that.
Right.
But they stick to the statute, and all these aliases. His name is Sean Combs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no necessity.
No.
It'd be different if he had a prior felony conviction and he used the name Puff Daddy.
Right.
He's also known, but they do this to fit into that whole concept of this is like the mob.
Right. Yeah, and then I think in many ways the federal authorities have become much more Hollywood in the way they're doing, press conferences, and so much. I hadn't seen federal prosecutors talk so much before in the past. In the past, you never knew who federal prosecutors were. You never saw their face. Even as prosecutors, you never saw.
Only time you really saw them was if they won, and then at the end, and it's a press conference.
Yeah, they're gonna be. If I'm the prosecutor, I'm just thinking about all the challenges in bringing a case like this.
Well, I think you can't fall into that LA law type of prosecution of talking too much and being in front of the camera too much. I think that just hurts you. I think you don't want to look like you're beating up on him, because you got to think about it. Sean Combs, Mr. Combs, has a big following.
Yeah.
And some of those followers may be on the jury.
And I think they're going to, as much as they can, I think even sometimes, as a prosecutor, they may leak some information, a little bit of information here and there, to try to shape public perception.
I don't think that's ethical.
I don't think it's ethical either. I don't think it's ethical either. But I think when you're dealing with somebody like this, this Mr. Combs going to have resources.
You know what? The prosecution got to keep in mind they're at a greater disadvantage, I think, because there's rule ethics for defense attorneys and there's specifically ones for prosecutors.
Right.
So their hands are tied more and should be tied more versus you have defense attorneys, they have the benefit of his media persona, the people he know in the media, all his backers, and they can have a greater influence. More of them could talk positively on his behalf than the prosecution publicly prior to trial saying something negative.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, if I'm the prosecutor in this case, I mean, just to be honest, there's going to be a lot of pressure on you. You don't think those prosecutors, wanted to win that OJ case? Or you don't think...
Well, Christopher Darden started crying.
He did. He did. It's true. The prosecutors, and it's not just because, well, some of them, I think, they do think they get paid by the case or something.
But as a prosecutor, I never took it personally.
Well, you should.
I'm like, I lost this one, and I learned more from losing than winning.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like next case, but there are a lot of prosecutors who take their cases personally, and it's not what it should be.
Well, yeah, but so when everyone has their eye, on you, when the world is going to be watching, even though cameras aren't allowed in federal court, which I think is maybe hopefully that rule will change one day in the future, but the whole, all eyes are going to be on the prosecutor, so it's going to be extra pressure on them. Whoever the head prosecutor is going to be a lot of pressure on that person, because you don't want to be the person that lost the big case. You don't want to be the person they said, oh, you lost that case as the prosecutor, and that people are never gonna forget that. So
yeah, you might stay as a prosecutor. You might not go into private practice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But and this why I'm a little perplexed too, as to they bring in this case and it just doesn't seem like a great case, because if you lose it, it just takes away from your credibility. But they're pressing forward. And from my understanding, they're still investigating, which isn't abnormal. They may investigate all the way up until the day of trial. But it is unusual for federal authorities to be so reactive. Usually they just have everything already. I just feel like they don't.
And they got to be careful, because people who are angry at Mr. Combs now, who are potential witness, after seeing what's happened to him, he's in custody. I don't know why he shouldn't be out of custody. They could have put a GPS, house arrest, take his passport. Where he's gonna go? You're saying me this guy is so famous. Where is he gonna go? He's so famous. Where is he gonna go?
Right.
But those same people who are mad at him now, a lot of people may see that and say, they're doing him wrong. Maybe they may not be so angry at him as this case goes on.
Right. Time heals all wounds. Right?
Exactly. Because a lot of times a person can turn into a victim in their eyes.
That can definitely happen. It's just nowadays with just so much media coverage on these cases. The perception that is had out in the public can change on a dime.
On a dime.
But just because even thinking in that realm, I remember in 2020 during the pandemic, when George Floyd happened, the murder. I think it really resonated because everyone was forced to watch it, and because we were on a lockdown.
We were on lockdown.
People who usually might try to close their eyes and not look at these things were forced. It was right there.
Well, I mean, it was on every channel.
Yeah.
It was on Facebook, Instagram. It was on everything. A lot of times you were forced to watch it. I mean, really, you just could not look at media and it not come up.
Right. Yeah. So the prosecutors, I think, something they're really going to have to be focused on is public perception and media coverage in this case, and they're gonna have to almost, if they don't have a sort of PR or department or something to that.
I don't think they have a PR. See, when you come, Sean Combs already has a PR.
Yes.
He's paying big money to these PR people.
Yeah.
And all that's going to do is translate over into his defense team.
Right.
I don't think, prosecutors have a media department. It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not an image department.
Right. Yeah. So, all right, we can take off the prosecutor hats, Yeah, that was tough. Oh man. Oh.
I'm about to go to church tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tough. But
a couple of Hail Marys.
Yeah. Okay. But now we can think about it, as we always have, and we'll go back to the defense on the defense side here. So if Mr. Combs was your client, Rickey, what's one of the first things you would do?
Two things. First, you got to front all his bad activities. You can't hide from it.
Yeah.
Does he hit women? Yes. But that's not racketeering. Right. That's not it's a crime? Yeah. We said he did. It's on video. Front that. You can't run away from it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, they're clearly trying to dirty him up. I mean, you could, for lack of a better word, dirty up the prosecution. Right. That they're just going after this guy because who he is. Right. Because he has money. That's what I would do. But front all that stuff. Yeah, this is what happened. It was a lot of consenting adults in there. Right. They could have walked away. These weren't children. Is he a bad guy towards women? Yeah. Is he a little freaky? Oh, hell yeah. But come on the same level as Al Capone and these other mafia guys? Yeah. Or the Herrera drug cartel? Right. No.
Exactly. An argument that I often make with my clients, I usually tell them before I do it, I say, you may not like my client, or my client may even disgust you, but that doesn't make them guilty. So you don't have to like Mr. Combs, but that still doesn't mean that he doesn't have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. And you're right about front end information. Some things you can't run away from. You just gotta. And when you, what do you mean by when you say use the word front?
That means you, instead of it just coming out of the mouths of the prosecutor that, oh, look, he beat this woman, you bring it up.
Right.
If you remember from the OJ case, one of the reasons why I think they lost it because the crime scene photographs of the victims, they were horrific.
Right.
But what the prosecution did is they kept showing it over and over and over again to the point where the jury got numb to it.
Right.
So if you bring up the fact, yes, he puts hands on women, that's bad, that's a crime. If you keep emphasizing it, then it would kind of minimize their case.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do that, it really takes the sting away. You know, it takes the Medlock moment away.
Exactly.
Like, aha, look at that. You know, but if you already have it put out there, then jurors are like, well, I've heard this already.
You can switch it. You don't have to. You can turn around and say, this is not about him. This really is about the state.
Right.
Or it's about one of the witnesses who said this.
Yeah. Is this a case where you would, if you were Mr. Combs' attorney, would you consider a plea?
Of course, the ultimate decision is up to the client, and we only can advise them. But first, you have to see what they're willing to offer. Right. If they say 30 years, that's ridiculous. You might as well roll the dice.
Right.
If they say 5 years and forfeit money and something like that, that's something I think he should consider. I wouldn't say necessarily take it. Right. But when, I like in our murder case, they offer 29 years?
29 years.
I mean, he's going to be an old man. He might die in prison. Right. So you might as well roll the dice.
Yeah.
So just with the limited information we have, if it's something that he thinks is reasonable and involves being incarcerated, that's not illogical to me.
Right.
But if they want him to die in prison, roll the dice.
And I think that's where they're headed with this case. He's not out. The judge didn't release him, which I still think is unusual, like you said. I think the prosecutors in this case, they're gonna want a lot of years. I just have this feeling that they want to make some type of example out of Mr. Combs, and they're gonna ask for just.
Well, they put themselves in that position,
right?
Because they charge him under RICO. You're painting him as this really bad guy, so now you're forced to go after a whole bunch of years. You put yourself in that position. Right. Don't charge him with RICO, where he may die in prison, or and then turn around and say, "Oh, I don't know if we should." Well, that's a choice. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
So they box themselves in.
Yeah.
Because if they give something, say 5 years, people are going to accuse them. Well, you only did that because he was wealthy.
Right.
But they box themselves in.
Right. And, whenever I hear RICO, it's funny or unusual, because if you think about it, was that back in late 80s, early 90s, who was using RICO extensively to clean up New York? Rudy Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani.
And look at him now. But
exactly.
At any rate,
I think he needs a lawyer, dude.
I mean, he might be right.
Oh,
about
he ain't
that.
got no money.
No,
They took that.
That's true. But he used the RICO tool to really attack mafia and other sort of entities in New York before he was mayor, when he was a federal prosecutor. He really tried to, and it worked. It worked to a certain degree. You got a lot of those.
The mafia is not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah, a lot, and those were for real bad dudes. Now, so do you think? Did everyone ever think, 35 years later, RICO would be going after some singer?
A rapper.
And
not even really a good rapper, but
the
music's good, but
music's good, yeah. So it's just mind-boggling to me that a lot of times people say, how's the expression go? If you're silent when someone's doing someone wrong to someone else, eventually they're going to be doing that wrong to you.
Yep.
So if you're not worried about it because it's not you.
Oh, say when they came for them, you said nothing.
Right.
When they came for them, you said nothing.
Right.
When they came from you, no one was left.
Yep. Exactly. That's exactly how it goes. So probably in thinking about, RICO, people probably said, man, it sounds great. It's a good idea.
But that wasn't the intent of RICO.
It wasn't. It wasn't the intent of RICO. But a lot of times, tools that we okay or tools that we say are fine that I think threaten our freedoms. We do it in times, especially when we think we need it, when we're in danger. Mm-hmm. You give up some of your freedoms. But then when you do that, the more and more it happens. Before you know it, a lot of those freedoms we work so hard for, they're gone. And I think that's what happens when we start to get in these situations. We're so fearful of what's going on nowadays.
Well, I mean, they're using a sledgehammer to kill a fly.
There you go.
That's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, and that's what I'm talking about with that, with the kind of the broader sort of implications in a case like this. I mean, so is this something that the federal authorities are going to start doing? They're going to start using RICO to go after, any old body?
Well, a lot of people who are clapping, you never know, they can go after MAGA. Religious groups, political groups.
Right. Yeah. And
all they have to say is you're the head of a criminal religious enterprise.
Right. But, I mean, on the other side of it, too, I think it's really going to make celebrities who, in my opinion, are worshipped too much in this country. But I think it's really going to make...
And some politicians.
Yeah. It's really going to make the celebrities, I think, sit up and pay attention. Wait a second. Maybe I can't do whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. Maybe I should.
Well, that's what money and power does to you.
Right. Yeah. But, is this something where people should be accountable for, in essence, their personal predilections? Or has the government, we think the case is weak, but has the government stepped too far into Mr. Combs' life, and now they're bringing charges for something, like you say, his lifestyle isn't something you agree with.
Exactly. Why are you coming into my bedroom, regardless of what I do in there?
Yeah. Do you think this is the case that's going to go to trial?
If I was to hazard a guess with the limited information we have, the prosecution has come strong.
Yeah.
So if you back down, you look weak.
Right.
So they put that stuff in a position. It's hard. If I'm going to take a wild guess, I'm going to say yes.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's going to be a trial. And I think what's going to happen, or a possible, if it hasn't happened already, is if I'm their attorneys, I'm going to demand trial. Now, because I think that he has the resource and the money, he's going to be able to afford it. So demand trial, pour everything into it, and hurry up and get them to trial before they get everything together.
Okay, and demanding trial is what?
Oh, yeah, there you go. See, it's walking into court and saying, I want a trial right now. And once you do that, as an attorney, and tell the judge and the prosecutor, I want a trial right now. If the prosecutors can't do that, they have a certain number of days to bring that trial, or the case is going to be dismissed.
So if you're in custody, how many days do they have to bring you to trial before the case is dismissed?
It's 120 days in state court, and 160 days if you're out in state court.
Even if you're in custody in federal court, it's 160?
No. So they have to bring it with that in that certain amount of time, and because he is in custody, that really shortens the time out. So it gives them less time to try. If they are investigating, they're gonna have to hurry up.
Here's another thing: 99% of the time, you may agree. You never demand trial, right, unless you know that person, the complaining witness or the victim, is not coming.
Right.
Whether they're dead or they're not coming from another reason. You are so correct. This is the one time. You know why? He's at advantage because he knows all the witnesses.
Yep.
He was there. He knows what happened.
Right.
His team doesn't have to do an investigation.
Right.
I know her. I know what she does. She did this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the times that, hey, you brought it. We know the investigation's not over. We're demanding.
Yep. And I think that may be, a really smart strategy for this particular case.
I'm sorry. And plus, they keep bringing in interstate,
Yes.
which means these witnesses are all over the place.
Yes.
So that means you're going to have to bring them all into the same place and prep them. First, you got to find them.
Yep. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
And no, but that brings up a very good point that we hadn't really discussed. Really, is that is this the type of case that we want our tax dollars are paying for? Because that's what ends up happening. How efficient or what resources are being used. One thing that the federal authorities do at the end of a federal case, if they win, they can ask for the cost of prosecution to be paid by the person that was found guilty. And if it's something like this, the costs would be astronomical. Because like you say, you have people from all over the country. You got to find them. You got to bring them in there. You got to talk to them. You're going through all these different business records and all.
And here's another thing. These type of people, a lot of them, they're talking about who are involved in these sexual things. A lot of them got background.
Yeah.
A lot of them may be drug addicts.
Yeah.
So it's not that simple to say, oh, he brought in all these strippers or this. They're going to have to testify, and then their credibility is going to be at issue.
Yeah.
It's not that easy.
But getting ready to wrap up here, but it's one important thing that we didn't talk about that I really want to talk about is the forfeiture allegations in here. Remember that?
I saw that. That's amazing.
Forfeiture. So forfeiture is, in essence, the government is taking your property, your money, your belongings. It can be property, physical belongings, money, and that is one of the scariest things that can happen in state court and federal court.
How do you say that to somebody? If I have this house that I pay for, or my mother's house, and you don't take care of it, you don't maintain it.
Right.
Sorry.
Yep. It's a scary part of the criminal system that doesn't get talked about enough. And I've done a fair amount of forfeiture cases in state court. They are not easy to win. They are very difficult. The laws are unusual and lax. And I've been fortunate up to this point. I've been able to work all of them out for the most part. But I've been in there where I've seen hearings happen, and at the end of the hearing, the judge says you lose, and you just see someone walk out dejected. The government just took their car.
A car they haven't finished paying for.
Yeah, so they still have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So a car, large amounts of money, just poof, gone. So they're definitely gonna come after Diddy and his belongings. And one thing I'm not absolutely sure of, I'm trying to figure out, when these things are forfeited, say for instance, in this case, they're trying to take Diddy's money and all his houses and items. Well, where does that stuff go?
It's just gonna sit there. Are they gonna pay somebody to cut the grass and that lowers the value of the houses next to them? You're gonna board it up. You're gonna have security. People gonna break into the house and steal stuff.
Yeah, auction. So it's probably some auction somewhere where government employees know about, and they're coming in and getting the items.
But if you auction it off and then you're found not guilty, what happens?
They just shrug like they did with Trump.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah, my fault. Okay, so important things about the episode today is that weak indictment. We're not impressed by the indictment.
Not moved.
Not moved by it. I think we're in a minority, but I think this is a case can fight with what we have here, and a winnable case. It's a case you can really a good defense attorney can sink their teeth into. The public perception and the media around this is going to be important for both sides to try to shape that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't a RICO case. Why are we using RICO to go after Sean Combs? I don't understand it. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But any final thoughts from you, Rickey?
good luck.
Yeah.
But, again, our goal here is to provide people with information.
Yeah.
With some, truth about how this stuff really works, and hope it benefits you.
Absolutely. So that wraps up another episode of Trial Attorneys. We're grateful you joined us. If you enjoyed our discussion, please take a moment to follow us on Spotify, rate the podcast, and share it with your friends. So join us next time as we delve into another high-profile legal case. Thank you.
Thank you.